Premises are all I see, and that is just fine with me. Modus ponens is the plan. Serve you logic. I am converted lobster here. All right, no one's here. So, people only show up when I talk to people, I guess. Yeah, that's all right. That's cool. I understand, So I decided I'd do a lobster hangout, a pointless one. Because I don't not like an after show or whatever, because, it's, But, just whatever, because there was people in chat that might wanted to talk to me, directly. And some people that wanted to say things at SJ, but, it was just, our hangout, thing that we'd scheduled. So, they might have other questions for me or, just want to say hi or complain that I, suck. I don't know. So, yeah, I'll put this on Twitter, see what happens. Let's see. Yeah, sure. Why not? Open hangout. Come on. Come on, join the fun. Let's see how many trolls will join up and try to get naked or whatever nonsense happens. So I got 3 viewers, so come on in if you want to be a lobster. Well, you don't have to want to be a lobster to come in, but it helps. Boy, those politician answers, love those. It is actually possible to test the past repeatedly in a way. One method is to see what works now in the present, and whatever can be done today, it's reasonable to conclude that you could have done that in the past. Now, obviously, they didn't have the technology to do a lot of the things we can do now, but if they had it, they could have done it. So things work the same today as they would have yesterday and the day before and so on and so forth. That's a reasonable conclusion to draw, and it seems to be true. So when you hear stories about people coming back from the dead, since we have no examples of that happening today, it's pretty reasonable to conclude that didn't happen in the past. So that's one way to kind of repeatedly test the past. But you could also set up scenarios and test those to see if the claims are reliable. So if someone wanted to claim that Abraham Lincoln killed a bunch of zombies, well, then they need to provide zombies. And if they can't provide zombies, then it's reasonable to conclude that there were no zombies. And of course they go, oh, but Abraham Lincoln killed them all. Well, okay, you have to provide evidence that happened. By the way, I think I might have made too much about the original copy of the Bible. Even if we had it, even if we had signed signatures of all the people involved, and we knew for absolute certainty that they all existed, it still wouldn't change that being skeptical about it, because they could all be making it up. And then you might say, well, but they got persecuted. Yeah, but once it got rolling, once it started to get traction, you started with just 12 people, with a fanatic leader, that's all you need. You don't need that many, but let's just say that that's what you had to start with. That if they just believe what the guy is telling them, that's enough for them to base their religion and beliefs on. And then when Jesus dies, when their leader dies, that would cause severe mental trauma. And, they scattered to the 4 winds. So whatever disciples were huddled together, talking to each other, trying to make sense of what happened, all it would take is for one of them to convince themselves that Jesus came back and they saw Jesus and it was real. And as they told that story to the other people, they'd be like, yes, well, you were telling that story. I felt like Jesus was here. It's a whole video that was done about this. I'll have to look for and post on that hangout, because it was really well done. But there's plenty of explanations to the resurrection part. Now, what about the miracles that Jesus supposedly did? Well, we don't, well, of course, we don't know how many of those were exaggerated. And the other thing, we don't know what Jesus did in between the ages, of from his, youth. So if we were to take the whole story as being written fairly accurately and say, well, there, Jesus, made this blind person see. Well, maybe he's just wiped, maybe putting mud in the eyes of that one guy. Did that get him to see? Or is it similar to what we see televangelists do, where they tell someone that they can walk or that they can do whatever, and they do for a little bit, and then after the person leaves, they go right back to having those problems. But that in that moment, they think that those problems are gone. So could it be that Jesus, if he had indeed existed and done, went to a blind person and said, you can see, if he was convincing enough and compelling enough and, rub the person's eyes, that they might think that they could see in that moment and say, I can see. And, it's a miracle, even though they couldn't see in reality. If you had a charismatic enough person and you had people saying, this person's going to cure your sight to that blind person, and you'd heard this rumors of this going on, you might be, especially in that time where people are superstitious and have a lot of beliefs, and there was a lot of these end of the time cults and stuff going around. Hey, redacted. Hi in chat. So that could have been what really happened, is that he said the blind person was cured, and the blind person said, I'm cured. He wasn't really cured, and they left thinking that the guy was cured. That's an explanation for that sort of miracle. What about the water into wine? Magicians do that. It's a trick. So it could have been a trick that Jesus did. Could have been. And other things where it's like, well, what about the sharing the loaf and the fishes, and then, it multiplies. Well, again, we don't know how much the story was exaggerated. Even if it's the person writing down what happened, it's not like they're writing it down as it happened, but even imagining that that's what they're doing, that doesn't stop them from exaggerating what's going on. Maybe everybody had some food and everybody decided to share, and by the sharing, it seemed like it was multiplied. So there are natural, mundane ways to explain every single event that's recorded as being a miracle in the Bible, up until the resurrection part. And the only mundane explanation there is it simply didn't happen. But another one would be, which is a bit more extreme, that maybe Jesus just really was good at regenerating his body, and so had mutant gene like Wolverine. Not that that's a thing, but who knows? And so he was able to come back, and whatever. Or maybe he had a twin, maybe this, maybe 100 different possible answers to that. But so even if we did have the writings of the people at the time, it really wouldn't make us less skeptical. So I didn't want to make it seem like that was super important that we didn't have them. But the fact of the matter is, it's another problem that we don't have them. And the earliest things that we know of are debated over. These things are debated over. They're not like hard settled fact. These are things that, the thing is, Jesus was bigger than the Beatles. That wouldn't have gone unnoticed. There were other people of the time that could have written down what was going on, and nobody did. Nobody noticed these miracles. Nobody noticed all this huge crowd of people gathering around a house as they lowered in a man to be healed of his leprosy. Nobody noticed that. Like, Rome didn't take notice of it. It's just, it doesn't work. Plus, and I didn't get to this, in the Bible, it smacks of a story narrative, not of a first person narrative. And here's why. If I'm to accept that John or whoever the hell wrote about Jesus. There's a story where Jesus in the Gospels, I forget which one, where Jesus goes into the desert alone. So that's where the story should have ended. Should have been like, yeah, and then I saw Jesus go into the desert. And then he came back after 40 days and nights. Not sure what he was doing, but he's back now. We're glad to see him back and he's okay. And then it would have gone on to say, and then Jesus told us about what happened in the desert. If it had been an account of a person telling the story, or it would have said, I followed Jesus into the desert and I snuck water and food with me. I didn't expect him to be out here for the day and night. I got to go back and get some more food. He's still out here. Oh my goodness. It's day 39, day 40, and I saw him talking to this guy who must be tempting him to do these different things, and he's rejecting it. And I'm keeping track. No, you don't see that. What you see is Jesus goes into the desert alone, gets tempted by the devil, or the tempter, and then comes back and doesn't tell anybody about what happened. He doesn't say anything to anybody, but somehow the all-seeing narrator knows what happened because it is a narrator. It's a story. Just like the all-seeing narrator is a textual type of writing that's easy to identify, and it's smack dab there in one of the Gospels. And that's one way to know that it is not history. It is a story made up probably in whole cloth. So that's what I think. I mean, to what degree or what evidence we have of the martyrdom or whatever, I don't know. I'm very, very skeptical of all of those things because of how many known forgeries have been in and around Christianity, because the church has a lot to lose, especially the Catholic Church. So, and they have a decent amount of power. So, who knows? I don't know. And it's like, well, some people say this or that, and it's like, well, yeah, I mean, it would be impressive if the list was longer and had more non-Christians on it. When you only have one non-Christian, that sort of tends to agree, but he has to go by the writings too. I mean, but the fact is, it doesn't take that long for religion to get going. The Jehovah, what's his name, Smith. For the Mormons, he got one guy, Oliver Cowdery, to go along with him. Well, first he got his wife to go along with him. Then he got one other guy. That's all it took to get the story going and starting to tell people that what happened, and then writing a thing and pretending that it happened and saying that it happened. And that's all it really took. It didn't take that long for it to be accepted as true. And we have copies of the early Mormon Bible, and we can see that it has changed significantly over time. Of course, the Mormons don't get that. They don't get access to that. Only the outsiders do. But what we don't have is the earlier copies of the Bible, and there was a tradition to burn the old copy. Once you made a new copy, we burned the old one. That's very bad. And, these dates, it was around the time that the guy would have been like, I don't know. It's very sketchy. Very sketchy. I think the earliest is 33 for sure. But, there's a lot of these stories are around the same time, a lot of nameless cults. This is the one that caught on. This is the one that got state approval and then became big. And it doesn't take much for religion to really get rolling. Really doesn't. And you don't need necessarily a charismatic person, because I don't know that Joseph Smith was that charismatic. But you just need a compelling story. So, but there's so many other reasons not. But here's the other problem, that it's so isolated. The story of the Bible, or the story of Jesus, is so isolated to one place. Everywhere else in the world is doing stuff at that time. In China, they've got decent writing going on, by the way. They've got literacy down. Most people are literate. Unlike Jerusalem, where hardly anyone's literate, able to read or write. So why not go to China? Why not make China your chosen place? Well, because God wanted to choose the least amount of people and make them awesome or whatever. Well, then give them all the ability to read and write, like all of them. So everybody could have written down what was going on. And you'd have tons of accounts, and then preserve it so it won't get destroyed. Say, look, this is really important, here's how to write it in a way that it won't get hurt, but it's still so limited to that time and place. And that smacks of human endeavor, not of God endeavor, because Jesus could have stayed alive and continued ministering all around the world. And you'd have an immortal being that you could go to and get healed and talk to and confirm and test. And that would be pretty darn compelling. And we don't have that. So there's many reasons to not buy into the Christian or any other religious narrative. It all smacks of human endeavor. And ultimately, I think that's what God is something that we've come up with, and something that we some of us need and other of us don't need it. Some of us believe in it or can believe in it, and others can't. It's sort of like Here There Be Dragons. It's the spot where we don't really know what to make of that, so we put God there, and it's just kind of a question mark. It's really kind of a holding place. Many times I'll hear theists say that, what's explain the universe, or explain how the universe came to be. It's like, I don't know. But what if I have the answer? What if it was something mundane, like, of course, answer is 42, right? That wouldn't satisfy they'd just put God, behind that answer. Be like, well, but God made the 42, So it wouldn't really matter even if you had the explanation for anything, because you can always move the goalpost of God back. God's a transcendent thing. So you asking for empirical evidence is a category error. But people in the Bible saw God, so asking to see God isn't a category error. Oh, by the way, hey God, light my hamster on fire if you're real. That's not happening. Okay, Baal, hey, light my hamster on fire if you're real. No, didn't happen. Okay, there, did the test, nothing happened. I guess you're supposed to get the actual thing like they did in the Bible and build this whole, sacrificial altar. It's a lot of trouble to go to, but if I could actually get somebody to agree that would disprove the Bible, I would totally do it. But of course, we all, I don't want to say we all know, but I mean, I don't know what the expression would be. I think that it's pretty clear that nothing would happen no matter how many times that test was run. And my brother reminded me there was another thing in the Bible where a guy had a test with his mat where it got wet, and then he prayed again and then said, well, the mat needs to stay dry and everything else needs to get wet. And then that happened. So that convinced him that God wanted him to do whatever. It's like, well, there's another test. Why can't we do that? Well, because it's a story and you can't test God because it's not there to test. Or the other answer is, well, because God's so mighty and, he's not going to stoop down to your level. Come on. You did it before. I usually say, have my computer levitate. That would be compelling. That'd be something at least. Although I'd rather have it be something that all of you could see, because if it's just me, that doesn't really, I guess I'd videotape it, but then I'd have to try to show that the tape wasn't, special effects or whatever. But, at least it would be something to go on. But magical, mystical, supernatural things just don't happen. Just mundane things happen that people mistake for spiritual stuff. Our brains are amazingly able to create all sorts of wondrous ideas. And, I said, look, I said, can you see God? Can you see love? Yes, actually, you can see love, and not just in the actions of people. You could get your brain hooked up to a machine and see that the patterns of your brainwaves change when you're thinking about people you love. You could do a brain scan and see what parts light up when you're thinking about love. You could do chemical tests. There's all sorts of ways that you could visualize love, but they just require some scientific instruments, which I would accept if there was that for God, but there isn't. There isn't any way to examine and see with any mechanism to physically see this thing called God. And the only other things that are like that are ideas that exist in our brain, like numbers and letters and math and stuff like that. It exists in our head. It doesn't exist out in the world, as some sort of thing that we can interact with. They're concepts of the mind. And that's it. So I agree, God exists in the mind, sure, but that's it. Because all these experiences happen in the mind. And they typically align with the sort of experiences that people say that they have about particular gods or whatever's in the zeitgeist of the area you're in. Nobody's coming in. Help me. I'm doing a monologue, people. Don't experiment on animals. It was a stuffed hamster. Okay. But it's okay. Look, if it was God could make it a real hamster. That would be cool, but it's not happening. Nothing's happening. To make the Pikachu real, that would be cool. Come on. I've prayed to God. I've prayed to the devil. I've prayed to demons. Nothing ever happens. Every now and then I'll talk about a ghost opening my door, and I'll look right at my door every time I talk about it. I'll be like, come on, door. This time it's going to open for sure, because I'm talking about a ghost opening my door, and I get like excited and I was like, open. And if it opened, I would just scream. It would freak me out. And I'd be like, ah, but I know it wouldn't be a ghost. There'd be a number of explanations. But the problem is I don't have an example of a ghost. And the way that the theist portrays God is this category that is untestable and unverifiable. And then they say, well, asking for evidence, that's just silly. It doesn't have evidence. Ha ha ha. Well, yeah, the ghost doesn't have evidence either, but that's because it doesn't exist. If something is real, there would be some way to verify it. Maybe we just didn't have the technology or something like that. That would be I think, if there was a God, whatever that is, there'd be a way to test it. There'd be some way to detect it. And like I said, with the God helmet thing, there's no way to know that your God experience isn't coming from magnets or drugs or heat or any other injury in your head or just stuff that your brain can do. There's no way to know that it's not a natural thing. Because we know that the brain can produce these things on its own, and that chemicals do things, and that our brain does things. And so just because we've labeled it spiritual doesn't make it actually spiritual. It's just a thing that happens in the brain, and we know it happens in the brain. But is it a thing that is outside of the brain? Well, there'd be some way to detect that, because it has to interact with the physical brain. So you can eliminate magnetic force as an explanation. You can eliminate a lot of things as an explanation, but you could never eliminate all natural explanations, because there'd always be something. But you don't have to. All you have to do is prove the positive claim that the spiritual is even a thing. It'd be, I don't know, maybe energy or something being beamed into your brain. We'd be able to track that somewhere, at some point, at some level. I used to live in a really haunted house. Still don't believe it goes. It was a low-level CO leak. Yeah, well, there's a good, carbon. Yeah, well, there was this thing. The scientists were in this laboratory that was in this really old building. And they all started to say that they felt a presence there, and they were all getting really freaked out by it. And they, this doesn't make sense to us. We know that there's no things as ghosts, but we feel like there's somebody here in the room besides us, besides the scientists. And so they hired a person that was external to them to investigate, because they were biased. They had experienced this weird thing. And this person looked around the place, and he crawled in the ducts, and he found this old rotating fan. And it was the vibrating harmonics of this fan that made these people experience this sensation of somebody being there. Once they stopped the fan from turning, the scientists no longer felt this presence, and that was the end of that. And that's all it might be. Is coincidences can happen and do happen all the time. In fact, they're not coincidences. I think Neil said something like, if a day happened where there was no coincidences, that would be the actual coincidence, or something like that. So we think that places are haunted because our sensory inputs are really good at detecting people. And so we can see people even when there's not people there to be seen. And so when you're alone and it's dark, and like we used to do as kids, we would do the Bloody Mary thing, where you would look in the mirror and go, Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary. And, you'd scream and run out of the bathroom because you saw Bloody Mary. Well, you never saw Bloody Mary in the mirror, but you made yourself think that you saw it. And because everyone else was screaming and running out of the bathroom, you did it too, because you wanted to be part of the group. And you could convince yourself, you could imagine that you saw Mary in the mirror. And so you would, in that moment, you would see it, but it wasn't really there. But you would see it, but it wasn't really there. But you would see it, because that's your imagination. And it's a very compelling thing, more so when there's other people involved. And if people continue to insist that saying Bloody Mary will make a woman show up behind you in the mirror, and if enough people said it, and you met every week to agree that this happens, and you wrote a book about it happening, and everybody read from that book and sang songs about it happening, you now have a Bloody Mary religion. And that's what it is. That's what religion is. Boo! Ah! Spooky bed hair. Buzz Magner. Hey, everybody, you can come on in. This is open lobster chat. Pointless. I don't know. Come on in. Maybe it's not pointless. Maybe there is a point. I don't know. But I used to believe, and I it's funny with the archaeology stuff. I'm very not convinced about any of that, because I actually looked for the archaeology evidence and found nothing that supported the Bible, neither the Old or New Testament. But lots of forgeries. Oh yeah, there's frauds plenty of frauds to pick from. So I'm just not impressed when I hear, oh, this person cited this and that, and it's like, whatever. It's just one giant Easter egg hunt. And it does, some people know the history better. I'd say a lot of people know the history better than I do, but the logic just doesn't hold up, because it is too isolated. It's too mundane, it's too localized. So the rest of the world was going about their business, and only the people that heard about Jesus doing these miracles had a chance of salvation. Is that how that worked? Oh, I got somebody. I've got Gary. Gary. Hello.
Yes, indeed.
Oh.
Hi.
Hi. What's up? Bro.
You were talking.
Yeah. Hello?
I just woke up.
Oh.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Woke up. You were saying archaeology?
Yeah. He woke up and heard me say archaeology.
No. I interrupted you in the middle of your sentence.
Yeah. Let's see. Okay, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I always go back to, and in America, there's dozens of spots where the country was visited by Vikings. Evidence was found. Vikings were here.
Yeah.
The Exodus, what, 1 million Jews wandering around 40 years?
Well, there was, both of those things have been negated. There wasn't that many Jews around at the time, and there's absolutely zero evidence of the Exodus. And the Egyptians did not keep slaves the way that the Jewish people recorded that they kept slaves. So the Egyptian thing is thought to be added in later because the Egyptian thing got like really popular. So, and it was a good people to blame. So it never happened. The Exodus didn't happen. Couldn't have happened.
Exactly.
Plus, it would have been like a really bad God. I'm just going to lead you in a circle until a bunch of you die. Why?
And Coach Dusty did a Google image search and pointed out that if they just walked around the edge of the ocean there, one standing in front of the other, they couldn't miss Jerusalem. It's impossible. And it was a trade route.
Popular,
it's not like they would trade route. Well, I don't care how lost you are. You see somebody walking towards something. Hey, do you know which way to Jerusalem?
Yeah, well, the story is that they didn't know where the promised land was or what it was at the time. But it's a just so story. So the Jewish people told this story, and it probably evolved over time to each other about how they got to where they live now, which is Jerusalem. And so they would tell each other stories about how did our people get here? Well, our God led us here, and then it would be our God led us here through the desert, and and it would just evolve from there.
People are always improving on the story, added their own embellishment.
Were you on Skylar Fiction the other day?
No.
No. Spooky Bed Hair said you look familiar.
Nope.
All right. Maybe you just have one of those faces that looks familiar. What does that mean? I don't know.
Maybe from a police lineup.
I've seen that guy.
Not Skylar Fiction.
Have you ever had a thing that was like spooky, like ghost or whatever, that sort of weird stuff that you thought was, whatever at the time? Or
whatever dreams I have, it's that could just be chalked up to being a very odd as fuck dream.
Yeah, but not dreams. Like, I mean, you were awake and something weird happened. You don't,
Oh, all right. I'm drunk as fuck.
Okay.
I'm riding towards home, 4:00 in the morning. I'm on a bike. Now, on the side of the road is what appeared to be standing was a lady dressed in black with a big black floppy hat and a veil, holding a bird cage with a dead bird in it. Now, there's 3 ways of viewing this. 1, I was drunk and I'm hallucinating. I'm more than a little tired, just my imagination. Now, I believe the supernatural say that was the specter of death telling you to fly right and find Jesus. And my interpretation was that the insane asylum for the area was 5 miles down the road and maybe somebody jumped the wall. Any way you slice it, I wasn't going to stop and chat.
What's the deal with the dead bird?
I just took one look at that and went farther wide around and kept pedaling.
That's what it's like that. That's where, if it had been a scary movie, the person would have stopped and or the bike would have broken or whatever, and they would have,
Yeah.
But you missed my talk with SJ, so you'll have to go and listen to that. I don't know. I need more practice. It's hard to know sometimes because like when somebody's talking and I kind of intuit where they're going with it. It's just like I cut them off at the pass because like I know what they're gonna say is a roll. It's like I kind of know, what they're gonna say, and it's like nope. Here's the nope.
At this point, how can you not know where they're going if it's the same tired old? It's going to be the same tired old Christian apology.
Yeah, I mean, it's not necessarily stuff I've heard before per se, but it's like I don't care who cites what or how many times or whatever. There's things. It's like if you could compile a decent list of people that recognize X to be a thing or whatever and show what religion they have or whatever, that would be interesting in and of itself. But I don't need all that thrown at me while I'm trying to ask questions that are really not, I don't think that complex, but whatever. I don't know. It was Thanksgiving and a turkey. Huh? What? Okay. I don't know what the Buzz has said something that I don't understand. Okay. I don't know. So yeah, what's going on? Talking about I don't know. Talk about something. I got nothing. My brain's gone now.
Well, we could talk about what I PM'd you about. Question: is it murder?
Whoa!
Remember that?
Oh.
I asked,
yeah. Oh, the woman with the dead bird says it was. Buzz says it was Thanksgiving and it was a turkey in the cage. Why would she put a turkey in the cage?
I don't know. Like I said, any way you slice it, that was somebody I did not want to talk to.
Yeah. Well. Okay. So I'll outline this for everybody because they don't know what the bleep we're talking about. So Gary had this question that if you are convinced to change your lifestyle from gay to not gay, that fundamentally changes your mind, and would that be considered a murder?
Well, this came up with. I thought this up when I remembered what Matt Powell said in the Geek Room. Under a Christian or a righteous government, gays would be murdered.
Hmm.
And I thought, you automatically lost any moral authority right there. When you have to kill somebody, you lost the argument.
Especially, yeah, I mean,
then I took it one step further and said, well, the religious nutballs who have an ounce of brains often say, well, just put them through camps. Well, when you force somebody through a camp, whether the force be physical, mental, or emotional trauma, it's still trauma. And that trauma, if it forces a fundamental change in the person, they're not the person that comes out of the camp is not the person who went into the camp. As far as their personality and how they interact with the world, did you kill that? Was that person murdered?
I mean,
philosophical.
Yeah, it's a good question because I mean, you could extend that and say, you know, when we send people to jail, they come out as a different person. So,
Well,
you know,
when that was something they chose to do to get thrown into jail for.
maybe not. They could be innocent. They could be wrongfully convicted. There could be a lot of factors. But if they can't, it doesn't matter. If they come out a different person than they went in, then the argument would still be sound. Where it's like, well, we've now committed murder to some degree, and it's like, yeah, well, because but I think that. I mean, it's more clear when you have the memory of a person is gone or a personality change. I don't know that would be as significant as complete. I don't know. It's hard to say because for me to really think that person isn't them, they'd have to not have any memories or they'd have to behave completely differently and things like that. So but to count as being dead, so to speak, that but I mean, it's a philosophical sort of question. I don't know that I think that it could be some sort of neurological way to resolve it, because it's like, at what point is somebody no longer themselves? Like, but I think that if they retain their memories and stuff like that they would still be them. I think that's a very big part of who people are. I don't know. Yeah, it's a good question. It's a decent argument to make, I think. It's one for the philosophy books there. Logic can't resolve it. Or it'd be like, it'd be the law of identity, I think, would be the only applicable thing to it. But see, then we could say that you're constantly dying because you're always becoming a new person every moment of every day, because you're gaining information you didn't have, before, and stuff like this. So,
But when the force is changed on somebody,
yeah, that's right.
If it's not murder, it's at least theft.
Yeah, it's something. I mean, I think that that the idea of trying to conversion therapy on people, or brainwashing, or whatever you want to call it, it is wrong, morally, ethically wrong, because you're inflicting harm where you didn't need to inflict harm, because usually it's the idea is, well, we want everybody to be able to cooperate in a society, and yet but because that person wears blue shirts, we're gonna send them to this camp and make them hate the color blue so that they don't wear blue shirts ever again. And I think, yeah, it's you've definitely done something wrong there. What you've done wrong is, or what to label that, I'm not sure, but yeah, it takes abuse to force a person to change against their will. Yeah, and it's unclear how effective it would be, because I mean that was part of that conversation I had, where we don't know that torture hasn't been really shown to be effective in getting people to change or whatever. So I don't know how many people it would affect, but there'd be a few, but I think it would be a very small minority that would make it through to the end. The other ones would probably, end their existence, or just, withstand the torture.
Live in depression.
Yeah, they might end their life due to depression, or maybe they would lie just to get out of it, or maybe they'd escape, or any number of possibilities. It's like one thing I was thinking of, was watching a movie, and every now and then this thought occurs to me, is like, the bad guy has the gun pointed at the good guy, and they're like, okay, get over there, get on your knees or whatever. And I'm like, why get on your knees? He's going to shoot you. He's going to shoot you. So why not just to be defiant and not do anything? And it's like, well, I guess because by getting on their knees and complying, they get a few more extra moments of life to try to do something with. But it's just weird that it's like, well, if you think that the guy is going to kill you no matter what, I wouldn't kneel. But,
after a guy that has a gun is unexpected and would be
yeah. I mean, I think that it's hard because, unless you're in that situation, you don't know what you would really do. And hopefully nobody ever gets in that. I don't want to be in that situation. But it's like, I just think it's like, why do people cooperate with the person when they suspect that they're going to get killed anyways? It's like, why wouldn't you just defy them right there at the outset? Like, and say, okay, go ahead, shoot me. You only have so many bullets or whatever. I mean, you better make sure it counts, because if it doesn't knock me down, I'm going to come at you or whatever, I don't know. Steppenwolf.
The Milgram experiment. The person has the air of authority in the well, I should probably say what the Milgram experiment was. Stanley Milgram, after the trial of Adolf Eichmann, ran an experiment in which he was wondering why did people obey the orders in the death camps in World War.
Yeah.
And in the experiment, he hired people off the street, and they were thought to be running a test on somebody who's in another room, and they were talking through an intercom. And the person was supposedly tied down and had electrodes to him.
Yeah, I know this experiment. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, but anybody who's listening might not.
Yeah, go on.
Well, as the experiment was supposed to be testing their memory, and through electric shock, that's supposedly trying to find out if the person answered the questions better. Well, on the authority of a guy in a lab coat, the person who was hired to hit the button kept going until he thought he murdered somebody. The guy in the other room would scream, "I have a heart condition. Stop doing this. I quit." And every time that happened, every time somebody hesitated to hit the button, the guy in the lab coat would scream, "Hit the button." And just because of that, 65% of the people in the experiment thought they murdered somebody.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's the power of authority, really. And so I think that that's another aspect of religion that plays on our psychology, where the person, first, they're elevated, they're on a stage, so they're more important than you. And you're looking at them, and you're listening to them, so they must be important because they're talking and you're not. So they are the. They have, well, whatever. They have props. It's a play, but they are in charge. And so, yeah, there we go.
I guess we're the 35% that doesn't push the button.
One can only hope so. I mean, it's hard to say unless you've been given that choice. I would hope I wouldn't. I'd be like, "Oh, this is wrong. I'm not doing this."
Well, society's telling us to push the button metaphorically. That I believe, and then we're going, no. Your reason? Give me explain to me why. They tell us, and we still go, no. I'm proud to be the 35%.
Yeah, I mean, the reasons given for in the hangout that I did just before this, I mean, you would have been rolling your eyes, I think, because who is it? What's his face? Snuffy was saying, give me a concrete reason to think God exists, and it's like the reasons given weren't even close to. It's like, well, because the Bible says this or that. It's like, really? I mean, it's like any religion could say that. It doesn't. It's not. It doesn't. It doesn't impress. We need more than we need. Something tangible, and we don't have that. I got her to admit that. She didn't like it, but I did get her to do it.
And the God is real because the Bible,
Mm.
Marvel Comics is my religion. Then,
yeah, I mean, I said, now how do we explain Luke Skywalker's bravery in The Empire Strikes Back? It's like, well, look, if you assume the story's real, then explaining the story becomes really difficult. How did Luke not win unless he had the Force?
And there's actually a religion based on Star Wars.
Yeah, it started as a joke and then it became real. Just like the Ned, there was a Ned Flanders, or I don't know if it's still around, but there was a Ned Flanders religion.
Oh, and I never heard of that one.
Yeah. I don't know if it's still around. Let's see if Google says anything on it. Ned. Oh, come on. I can't even type. Huh? Let's see.
Oh, Marvel Comics is my religion because Stan Lee is the true prophet. The way the world universe should be was exposed to it. Where the universe will be was given to us by Stan Lee. He is the prophet. If we believe firmly enough, we will all have superpowers.
Well, it's not a cult.
Marvel.
It's not a cult anymore, and its leader is gone. So now it's a religion.
I don't hate religious people. I mean, if somebody shares their beliefs, okay, good. When they try to legislate their belief, oh no, that's bad. Like when Jim Imhoff read the Bible as proof against global warming. He's a senator, and he did it in the halls of Congress. It's like, no, oh no.
I found a thing. It's pretty old. I don't think it's around anymore.
What?
The Ned Flanders phenomenon thing.
Oh, humanity is so desperate to find some form of escapism, isn't it?
Well, see, they haven't read the true and only book, which is the Lobsterist, and until they read that, they'll never understand. I throw that, the amount of times I've thrown that out there, and nobody has been like, "I want to read the Lobsterist." It's just kind of, I don't know if I'm depressed or if I'm flat.
Poor thing, I'm sure it hurts your feelings, you being the only adherent of that belief.
It's my cross to bear.
At least my religion, Marvelism, has millions of followers.
Yeah. How did you take the bad news of Mr. Lee walking off the mortal coil? That was pretty sad.
Oh yeah, well, I'm not that into it.
Yeah, well,
not to the point where I actually have a fanboy mentality.
When Stephen Hawking went, that really hit me hard. I don't know why. It's just, this great mind is gone. It's just really, I don't know. Just really hit me.
Long as there's still education, there's still a chance another Hawkins would rise up. He was the Da Vinci of his time.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's kind of like I wonder who that person will be, and like if we'll see him or not, or But I don't know. It's just It's like sometimes when somebody big goes, it hits you, and sometimes it doesn't. I don't know. Because what's Bush?
I cried when Elvis died.
Yeah, Bush Senior went, and I was like, oh yeah, okay. Yeah. I was like, yeah, well, it happens. I mean, I couldn't, I didn't have any
We all go
connection or
eventually.
anything. Yeah.
But
Not me. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm gonna live forever.
When I was a kid, I cried when Elvis died.
Yeah. Hmm. Yeah, I thought he didn't. I thought he was still around though. People keep saying that they saw him.
Right. And Sasquatch is real, and
Well, he's hanging out with Elvis.
of course.
With who was it? Tupac, or who is it that like there's a conspiracy around that got killed or
Tupac is still alive, they say,
yeah.
and they're all hanging out. They're all living in a colony with John F. Kennedy.
And what's his name? Mandela's there because he's still alive, and he didn't. That's the real Mandela effect. Is he actually didn't die at all? What do I?
Conspiracies get so fucking weird. That Obama did that was a mistake. One of the mistakes he made.
Well, Obama did.
There was a conspiracy. There was a conspiracy about some conspiracy nutball said that he was in a program in Harvard where they were in something called a jump room, and they go into this room and somehow they're on Mars, and Obama was there. Well, of course, that's absurd as fuck, and no one believed it. But when Obama press secretary denied the story, you don't give conspiracy nuts any fodder because they would just go with it. The conspiracy nutball who said that was, he denied it. He denied it. Isn't this wonderful? Like, no, motherfucker. True when you said it. It's not true when he denied it. But in his mind, that's all he needed.
Well, in Germany, it is illegal to deny the Holocaust. So if you're a conspiracy nut, you point to that and go, aha, that proves that there's a conspiracy.
There's a wonderful story back a long time ago before the internet really took hold. Nutball from Iowa who was trying to smuggle in Nazi propaganda into Germany through Denmark. He did fundraisers for the Nazi Party in America. And he actually looked like Adolf Hitler. He made himself look like Adolf Hitler. Well, while he was in Denmark, the Danish police grabbed him on a trumped up charge and held him for the Germans. Germans, like you said, it's illegal to be a Holocaust denier, and the Germans prosecuted him. I would have loved to have been the American ambassador in Germany. When they had to talk to the guy, I would have said, look, we asked around. Nobody wants you back. The Germans are willing to keep you, so nice knowing you, buddy.
Yeah. I don't know. People do weird things. I mean, I don't know. It's like people believe weird things. People do weird things. I don't know, man. It's weird. We're weird. Everybody's weird except for me. I'm normal. I'm the only normal one. Everyone else is insane. What the hell?
It's a way to make themselves feel special, I guess. It's like a Christian with a persecution complex. I still say the persecution complex is a form of Munchausen syndrome.
Yeah, how's that?
Munchausen syndrome, somebody fakes an illness and they want everyone to be sympathetic to them because the person is supposed to with an illness. Christian persecution complex is feel sorry for me because I'm being persecuted. I can't hate gay people now. Isn't that terrible? My religious beliefs are being infringed upon. How so?
Well, look, I don't understand.
Tolerant to
It's
others.
weird. It's weird because that's not the whole thing with homosexuality. It's not really there in the Bible, but it is because of translations. And then it's like, yeah, but what about the mixed fabrics and eating shellfish? And it's like, no. Look,
People who get upset about that are the same people who have when the thought goes into their head, part of them says yes, yes, yes. Then it hits their conscious mind and we go, ah, no, no.
Yep. Oh no, I think my favorite website's dead. No. Oh. Did it die? It did. Oh well.
Oh,
Yeah, there's a
Google
website for
dies.
sale. No. Aw.
Hey, yo,
Yo, what's up?
do you have any idea where I can watch Deep Space Nine?
No,
No?
not really. Hold on a second. I gotta put you on mute here.
Okay.
Entertain the masses.
What, should I dance? Okay, I got a story. I'm talking about, I was at a gas station where, like in Arkansas, there's not a hell of a lot of atheists, of course, but there's this one guy I know that works in a gas station. And I stopped in on my way to work. As we're talking, after I made my purchase, guy walks in, my friend Mark goes, "Hey!" And before the guy even said anything, I could tell he's dealing with some stress because when someone's going through post-traumatic stress disorder, where a normal person looks relaxed, someone's going through PTSD, they are forcing themselves to look relaxed. Yeah. He said he just got back from Afghanistan. He's a army sniper. So there was nobody else in the story. So we go out and they're smoking and I'm talking to him and I'm asking him questions about basic training, some funny stories I heard. And the sniper goes, not only what you heard was true, it's worse than that. Customer comes in, so Mark has to go back into the store. The sniper turns to me with his eyes kind of wide and very intense look on his face and goes, "What helped me get through the war is my belief in our risen Lord Jesus Christ. Are you a follower of the risen Lord?" And the first thing goes to my mind is, holy shit, thank you so much, Mark, for leaving me with this guy. He's in peak physical condition, going through PTSD, and some emotional issues are going on in this guy's head, and I have to answer them now. So long as there are atheists who are being thrown into jail in this world. There's atheists being murdered. Out of respect to them and to myself, I said, "No, I'm an atheist." And the guy was fine.
Wow.
He was cool. And we're talking about it, and he's asking me why. And one thing that was in my mind at the time was gay marriage initiative. And I said, well, I told him about a video I did, which is worse. And I said, at the end of the video, I asked, which is worse? ISIS for throwing gay men off of tall buildings, or Christianity tormenting gay men to throwing themselves off of buildings. And this sniper, his eyes got really even more intense, and he almost growled. And he said, "Those sons of bitches are ruining Christianity.
Yeah. Well, that's one way to look at it.
And then he started telling me about, oh, I don't give a care what somebody does as long as it's consensual.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I really think these Christian fanatics like to say they're going to be tormented and used for their faith. Yeah, I think it's going to be other Christians who just get damn tired of this bullshit.
Mm.
You know, Fearstein's going to be on the stage one day going off on a gay rant, and the whole stage would probably be swarmed.
What was funny about that is
For us.
that a lot of the studies have come out that the more against homosexuality you are, the more that indicates you are a homosexual. And so
Ted Haggard is the finest example.
Yeah, I was thinking of that, and he's back preaching. I think I could be wrong, but yeah, it's like,
And yeah, he was until he got caught with another prostitute. I heard.
no, okay, well, maybe he was back and then he's not back, and then he'll be back again.
Oh yeah, I'm sure his back has seen a lot of action, but
well, hey, look, hopefully he'll just, maybe he can just be himself and say, tell it like it is, But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, but the hangout I did, it was a thing, and I don't know. No, I think I'm out of mental energy. I believe I've answered everyone's questions. Nobody. Oh, Miss Caplet came and left, whoever the bleep that was. Nobody but you wanted to come in here and talk, but we talked. So that was the thing, everybody. I don't know. Yeah. So that's all I got. I got nothing now. My brain's gone. I got nothing.
Well, I gotta get ready for work anyway.
All right. See you later. Okay, everybody, goodbye. I did a thing again. This was pointless. God's still probably not there. I don't know. I wasn't convinced by that last hangout. So yeah, Gary, check that out whenever you want, or don't. I don't care. Whatever. All right. Bye. I'm hitting the button. I'm gonna hit this button.